The Bone tool in Adobe Animate CC makes it easy to add lifelike animation to characters which have movable joints. Let's explore this tool and see what's possible. When animating with the Bone tool, you can use a number of different project types. We're going to choose HTML5 canvas, and the first thing we'll do is just change the background color. So I'll use this dark blue. Using the CC Libraries panel, we can easily integrate assets created with other applications, like this vector skeleton from Adobe Illustrator. We'll just drag and drop this onto our stage, and we're able to import it. I want to make sure to put everything into a single animate layer, and I'll hit OK. All right, let's close that. We can modify any of the assets within our imported content. For instance, let's go ahead and remove this background element, because we don't really need that for our animation. In order to rig the skeleton as an armature, we'll first convert each element to a movie clip symbol. The Bone tool can also be used on shape objects, but in this case, we're rigging the skeleton using symbols. So let's choose each element. So I'll choose the rib cage here, and we'll choose Modify, Convert to Symbol, and here we can give it a name, Ribs, and make sure it's a movie clip symbol, and hit OK. We're going to repeat this on every other piece. So choosing the skull, Modify, Convert to Symbol, Skull, and OK. Since I'm doing this to many different pieces, let's go ahead and speed up playback to when I'm finished. All right, now that this is complete, we can see that each one of these is a movie clip symbol instance. Let's go ahead and recenter our stage by clicking the center stage button here. And then I'm going to select everything. And then I can move everything around just like that. So what I'm going to do is position the skeleton somewhere around there. Now that we have our skeleton assembled into individual movie clip symbols, we can use the Bone tool to actually rig the armature. You'll find the Bone tool in the Tools panel over to the side here. With that selected, we can then go ahead and draw in our primary bone. This is from where every other bone in our armature is going to branch out from. For this, I'm going to pin the heart right here and then pull that up to the skull. So basically click and drag until you get up to one of the other movie clip symbols, and then release. Now, the rib cage and the skull are both part of the same armature, simply because I have this bone connecting them both. You'll notice down in the timeline, we also have a special armature layer. The background for an armature layer is yellow in terms of its frame span, and it receives a special icon as well. Let's complete rigging this armature here by clicking once again on that primary point and then dragging out until we connect once again. We'll do that to the other arm, to the pelvis, and then even from there, let's branch out into these other pieces. Same thing with the arms. And you don't have to be too exact unless you have the time to do so. And there we have our completed armature. Let's choose our selection tool. So with this bone highlighted, we can go ahead in the Properties panel and look for our joint rotation. Here we can actually put some constraints on that. So for instance, as I go ahead here and shift these things around, we can see the level of constraint that we have on this joint, adapt and change. That looks pretty good. Let's go over to the other arm now, and I'll do the same thing. I'll enable constraints and shift that around until we get this nice sort of half moon rotation constraint. Let's zoom back out to 100% and center the stage. To test this, we can just grab the arm, and holding down Shift, it'll actually constrain exactly as we specified. If I don't hold Shift down, I'll be able to move the entire armature based on the movements of that bone. You'll notice that by constraining the rotation of specific joints in this manner, we can add more realistic movements to our armature. Now, since we've created this armature layer, we do have this empty layer right below it. Let's build something for our skeleton to lean against. I'm going to choose this gray color and use a rectangle tool to go ahead and pull out a rectangle here. Selecting that rectangle, let's actually align it to the left bottom of the stage. And then using the subselection tool, I can choose this particular point in our rectangle right here and adapt the path like this. So now that gives the skeleton a nice little incline to rest upon. In order to animate the skeleton, we need to change the pose of our armature over time. So to do that, let's actually go ahead and over at frame 40, select the frames across both of those layers, and choose Insert, Timeline, Frame. Let's lock down this secondary layer, and with our selection tool, we can choose Edit, Select All, and then using our arrow keys, we can shift the skeleton over a bit, and then simply click the pasteboard to deselect everything. Let's go ahead now and actually pose our armature. So I want the skeleton to be at an angle like this, and note that I am still holding Shift down. I'm providing the skeleton with a natural pose as I go through these different motions here. And there we are. You'll notice down in our armature layer we have two poses, which appear just like keyframes, here and here. Now, of course, if we wanted to, we could always put in intermediary poses here and here until it's exactly like we want it. However, this is actually pretty good. Let's go ahead and test this by rewinding and then playing it back. If we want to actually see it run in the browser, we can choose Control, Test. And there it is running in the browser as well as HTML5 canvas from AnimateCC.